Hello and welcome to the Marketing podcast, where today's session is on how do we solve the energy sector skill gap? This one feels important. We're talking about the energy sector skill gap, and not in a vague, hand-wringing way, but in a practical, what are we actually doing way.
I think right now, because the energy sector is transforming at such speed with net zero, new technologies, having the right people is more important than ever.
So we're delighted to have Stephen Barrett with us today, Director of Membership and Strategic Engagement at the Energy and Utility Skills, or as we know it, the EUS. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you.
Right, we're going to dive straight in. So the energy sector is constantly transforming and jobs in this industry change all the time. I've worked in it for, I'm showing my age now, well over 20 years, and it has completely transformed. If you had to pick one hidden gem of a job in the energy sector right now, something that most people don't even know exists, what would it be?
Well, I think in terms of the transition that you just mentioned to a new energy system, and I was just reading this morning, just as before I came into this session, about the energy mix and about where we're moving to with regards to wind and solar and that energy mix. It's got to be something in that clean energy technology. It's got to be something around probably those sustainable roles around renewable, perhaps retrofit, thinking about what career choices people can make and actually putting their time and effort into something which isn't perhaps based on older technology, which may become redundant over the next 5 to 10 years. What we don't know is what some of those jobs will look like in the future, but what we do know is that the technology is changing, and is changing at a pace which we really need to get on board with. We can invest in the infrastructure. We need to make sure we're investing in the skills and the people as well.
But it has changed so much. I think when I, again, kind of started out my career, a lot of the roles, it was more traditional or kind of, energy retailers were ultimately the billing component. Whereas now with all of the different technology, but also the role of AI as well, it is fascinating and such an exciting industry for people to want to get into.
Yeah, it really is. Digitalisation is going to be really important going forward. And part of that, it's a transition as well. So we think about this wholesale change, and you think about how much AI and technology has come on in the last few years. Well, that's going to be a huge, impact as we go forward, and people will need to consider those digital elements to those roles, and it might be from using handheld palm top organizers right the way down to remote operation of equipment. And a good example of that is when you look at the HVDC, so the high voltage direct current projects that are working on the huge interconnectors that are coming in from different countries and into the east of England from Scotland. Much of that plant is operated remotely, and it's through digitalisation. It's operated, by someone sat a long way away
in their living room,
and that's right, someone on a laptop. But the technology around that is, it's really important. So therefore, how you can operate that equipment effectively is going to be really important going forward. So that sort of thing is going to be a big implication for people as they're looking for career changes or options. If they're sat in school at the moment, we talk about, we don't even know what those jobs are going to look like going forward. Well, that's a good example, right?
Yeah.
So it's a challenge.
Fab.
The EUS exists to tackle some of the sector's biggest skills challenges. From where you're sitting now, what are the barriers that the sector currently faces?
I think the two biggest barriers are, one, we don't have enough people to do the jobs at the moment. And that is probably around two different elements. So we have an immediate need in that transition to net zero, certainly in the energy sector, needs to happen by 2030. So therefore, most of the people that are going to fill those roles are probably in the sector or adjacent sectors already. So therefore, that could be an element of reskilling or bringing in people with a close match to those skills into those roles. So there's going to be a little bit about almost using the building blocks. So some of the things we've been looking at quite recently is about levy funding and the different rules around modules or elements of apprenticeship standards to be able to stack and make people competent around different roles. Therefore, giving you a little bit of flexibility about what those training programs look like. So it's going to be those people that are in jobs, and they may be in the rail or the oil and gas industry. There's a really good example of how we can transfer people over, heavily regulated, safety orientated, critical national infrastructure type projects, but also things like OpenReach. So we're coming to the end of that fibre rollout.
Yep.
And those skills, people climbing up poles and, doing the overhead lines type work as well, going to be hugely important. But those people are probably in the workplace already. But also we need to be quite clear about the messaging which we're putting out there. So thinking about schools and apprenticeship programs and graduates, etc. So we need to be telling them about this is not just a career that ends in 2030. It goes beyond that. So therefore we need to be enticing and getting people interested in the sector beyond that 2030 deadline. And that's really important, because we suffered a while back around bringing on apprentices, and we had this huge kind of bathtub effect of their people talking about this cliff edge of people around my sort of age, and we definitely don't want people coming into the sector that look like me. We're looking for diversity in the sector. That's really important as well. But more importantly is about telling people that actually this is a career that you can come into with a future, because the energy system, the transition to a clean energy system is really important. But also I don't think we should forget as well, to add another one onto that, maybe 2A, is let's not forget about the infrastructure development, the amount of money which is being spent at the moment on the water industry. Thinking about that whole transition, £104 billion over the next 4.5, 5 years, that's massive. And that's not happening in isolation. That's happening at the same time as we're building nuclear power stations. At the same time, we're doing the Great Grid Upgrade. We're transitioning from distribution networks to distribution system operation. We're talking about microgeneration as well as gigawatt power generation. So it's all happening at the same time. It's not a perfect storm, but it's a big transition. And if we're not telling people about it and it goes on beyond 2030, then we will have a challenge, because people will go off and they'll be joining super funky looking the industries which are telling a great story about their digital future and their exciting things which they're doing. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's really interesting. Thank you.
It is. I've got two questions actually to kind of hit you with on this one. Firstly, just kind of building on what you've just said there, why do you think it is? Do you think we're just not getting the message out there effectively? Why do you think we have this skills shortage? Because for me, it's a really exciting industry to be in, especially, the fact that we don't know what the jobs are, that excites me, because, people can be shaping it as well, and with the digitalisation. And then secondly, what do we mean by skills shortage? Like tangibly, what does that actually look like in terms of like numbers or roles that we're currently facing?
Okay, let's talk about the message first.
Sorry, that was 2 in 1.
Yeah,
you can have a 2A if you wish.
My memory might be lost on that. So let's talk about the message. I think it is or has been in the past just a very steady industry. So we're business as usual. The grid was built, the utilities infrastructure was built, and it's been very stable, with a very stable workforce for quite a while. But the transition that we're going through, certainly on energy, and changing, we talk about gas, right? So it's a really good example. And we will be hopefully transitioning from a natural gas into hydrogen or other biomethane and the likes. What that means is there is a change in the workforce demand as well. So there'll be a different demand for the types of skills and perhaps the type of people that are carrying out those skills as well. So there's going to be a number of changes in there. But when people look at the sector from the outside, they say, well, you've got to be surely an engineer. You've got to be, you've got to be great at doing certain things, or, so there is
perception is like a hard hat kind of.
Yeah. High vis jackets and whereas a lot of it is around network design, or it's about, an area which we're struggling with at the moment is planning around things like solar farms and the likes. Actually, the capability within local planning offices to be able to interpret these major infrastructure potential developments with the skills which they've had to usually employ to agree with somebody's, extension on their house and the likes. So it's something which they've not been used to. So So there's a little bit about that. But actually, when we're talking about how we attract people into industry, we've got to demystify. We've got to make it try and make it as clear as we possibly can. My children are coming up through school, and they're going to be thinking about what can I do in the future, and how when I'm talking to people, and we'll talk about sector attraction, I'm sure, as we go through this. But when we're talking to people about the sector, we can't talk in the jargon that we usually talk about. I mentioned HVDC earlier, and people usually start glazing over when you start talking about that sort of thing. What is that? But we got to talk about, this is an exciting place to be. You are going to be part of that transition, which will solve, hopefully, global warming, right? So you're going to try and create something which should address the impacts of climate change. And that really resonates with people. That means something to people. But people are also very realistic about the fact that they want a career. They want a career with choices. They want to make sure that if they are going to make a choice around that career, they've got somewhere to go to in terms of progression. And also that, it's got to have purpose, but it's got to be there for as a sustainable job for them. So I think those points are quite important. So that's the message which I'm trying to get out there. And then to your question about what skills are required, there are, we've done a heap of research about the amount of people that we need in industry. Over the next 5 years, or 4 years now, in fact, we're talking about 312,000 people needed in industry over that time. And that comes right the way across from entry-level roles, which we're talking at around 40,000 or thereabouts, to bring into industry. And what does that mean? Well, if we don't get those entry-level roles in, then you can't have those other roles which people will move on to. So technical roles, and then into management type roles as well. So that's a factor that we need to consider as we're going forward. Now, if you balance that against where we are in the UK at the moment, there are just shy of 1 million people in that NEETs kind of category, right? So they're not employed in educational training. Now, that is a big problem for the UK, right? So you talk about kind of efficiency of the UK and underemployment, people just not being in the working environment. But we've got the opportunities in the energy and utilities industry, right? And we're trying to say, well, look, what we need to do is create those pathways into industry and allow them to come into work. And one of the things which we've been doing is working with the Department of Work and Pensions to be able to create an entry-level program, which enables people to get in, but not only just into any job, into a good job which can actually turn people's lives around. And one of the programs which we've run, with the feedback which we've had, has been absolutely incredible. It's been, thank you so much for organising this program. It's changed my life. I'm now able to, create a future for my family, and it's those sorts of things, I think, which certainly make me get out of bed in the morning, and they're really exciting to, challenge the system and change things around, because there is a job for everyone. Yes, if you're a graduate, there'll be graduate roles and there'll be future opportunities for people to go into, absolutely. But apprentices, but actually, for the million or so kids that come out of school without qualifications, they shouldn't be writing off the sector. They should still be looking at it as an option and saying, well, that could be something that I could do. And, do you see yourself as one of those people that are going to solve that, that transition to net zero challenge, and making sure that we're building those, building the reservoirs and, and upgrading the whole system. That's really, really important for us in the future. And it's going to affect families and infrastructure and industry alike. So, it's exciting.
Is the skill shortage specifically a UK problem, or is the skill shortage much wider?
International?
Yes, I was going to say European, but let's go wider than that, Ross. Let's go global.
I've been around this, the skills system for long enough, and if I think back to my days when I was in the nuclear industry, we were still challenged with some of the same skill shortages. Electricians, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, design, those sorts of things. But I think we're seeing it expanding beyond those now into perhaps more nuanced areas, and project management. And, I talked about planning earlier. But look, we kind of submit responses into government about what those shortage occupations are. and the Migration Advisory Committee kind of agrees, well, what people can we allow into the UK with certain visa requirements, and what people can come in through sponsorship, and we are seeing that some of the roles which we're short of in the UK are being covered by people that are coming in from international, and look, that's a good thing within those niche roles, but also that shows a bit of a system failure from our perspective.
Yeah.
But when we talk about the speed of transition, and some of those really key roles which perhaps we can't fill within the time frame that we've got available, we do need to bring those resources in. But there is clear evidence that within those engineering type roles, they are in shortage everywhere that you look,
globally,
and globally. But we have a requirement sometimes for peak demand of resources as well, which things like outages on overhead power lines and the likes. They're not. We don't need those people all year. So we need to think that we have been bringing in resources from outside of the UK to be able to support some of that activity. But certainly something that we need to be looking at in the future is about how do we utilise those resources at the time where they're needed for outages, but also supporting in other areas of industry that can actually make sure that they are gainfully employed throughout the year as well. So they've got those future requirements. But yes, there's probably a bit of both.
Because that would absolutely be needed if they're going to go into a career in that space. They want to know, like you said, that there's longevity in that kind of role and beyond.
Yeah.
So interesting. So interesting.
It is. It's absolutely fascinating. So the industry itself is shifting. We're moving towards hydrogen, smart grids, digitalisation. How is that reflected in how the actual careers in the energy industry are changing?
I think it's early days. And when we talk about messaging to people that are potentially coming into industry, I think we need to be clear on where we are and the speed of transition that we're moving to. I mentioned earlier about distribution system and digitalization. So coming from palm top organizers to remote operation of pumps and, this whole HVDC, let's talk about that again, and about how all that works. Well, it's going to take time to get to that point. And when people come in, utilities, energy and utilities is fundamentally overhead lines, power lines, and it's cables in the ground and it's pipes in the ground. That's right. Yeah. So there's going to be an element of excavation associated with that, kind of going into, and the vans and stuff that you'll see out on the road doing roadworks will be either a gas distribution network or a power distribution network, or so they're the familiar things which we have. But the whole design element, and if you look at the energy system operator, NESO, the digitalization that's going on there and the new roles which are going to be required around this network design and how you manage that flow of energy and making sure that we're capitalizing as much as we possibly can on that power distribution and juggling. I mentioned the micro generation that you've got of someone's solar and likes, and they've got batteries and they've got electric cars and they're plugging them in, as well as gigawatt generation from nuclear power station. Hinkley Point's just going in, Sizewell C's just been signed off. Well, that's massive balancing of grid, and there's a lot of clever people out there managing that, way cleverer than me. There's balancing that grid, and those skills are going to be absolutely needed going forward. But there's going to be roles for everyone, so we need to manage that expectation when people are coming into industry, so they understand what that future looks like. And I think that's really important, not only in the context of technology evolution. I think that's in the context of a number of other elements as well. So what's the future of the role look like? Well, there's going to be a speed to transition within that as well. And therefore, there's going to be a requirement for learning and how people get to a point of competency before they can go and carry on with those roles. But it's very exciting.
It's hugely exciting.
But there's an element of change associated with that.
It's hugely exciting. I think one of the most exciting things is from the perspective of the UK is that you're talking about there is all this opportunity. What I'm hearing is there is so much opportunity for young people, young adults, and even not so young adults to have a career with longevity within the energy industry. The jobs are available now and in the future. So for many people, that will be something fantastic they can step into. So yes, it is hugely exciting.
we're slightly biased, but I agree with
Yes.
you totally. Just on that note, when we are kind of just obviously the two different groups, people that probably the more short-term need that can transfer their skills from kind of another industry into this one, or the young people, what's the key thing from your experience that pulls them in, that excites them, that kind of resonates with them to want to join this sector?
I think it's the future,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of it's building so quickly, but do people understand it? They've got a kind of an idea, right? They see it in the news about wind farms happening in the local area. Certainly in my part of the country in East Anglia, everything that's going on with Sizewell C at the moment, and things with huge excavation projects which are going on. They're really exciting, and they're kind of going, yeah, but how do I get into that? It's tough to understand, but they're excited by it, and they kind of see that transition as something which does make a difference, and it will make a difference in the future. And what we need to do is to make sure we get that message out into schools, and also parents understand it, because sometimes we talk about enablers and blockers, and sometimes the easiest way to get people into industry, or usually the way that people come into industry in those perhaps quite localized elements, is they've had family or they've had friends, or and they kind of understand what that looks like, and people can say it's a really exciting career, it pays really well, and it's it's something which you can really kind of develop into. So I think that's the excitement for me, and for what I'm seeing with people that I talk to, and certainly some of the interviews which I've done as part of some of the sector attraction work which we've been doing. They talk about this exciting thing, being part of something which is bigger than just that one thing which I'm doing. It connects to the bigger UK global challenge around this transition, hopefully, to net zero.
Steve, tell me more about Destination Energy.
I'm glad you asked that. It's a really exciting opportunity which we have with Destination Energy. So you may or may not be aware that as part of the Clean Energy Jobs Plan, included in there was the requirement or an ambition to run a sector attraction campaign. So Energy and Utility Skills, myself and my team decided to take up that challenge, and we came up with a really ambitious, bold plan around something called Destination Energy. Destination Energy is a campaign which is going to run initially over the first 12 months, and it's a series of webinars and social media activity which will really demystify the energy industry, so that people thinking about a career in the industry can look at it and say, oh, right, I get it, I understand what that's about. It's about bringing graduates, it's about bringing ex-forces, perhaps ex-offenders, people that you wouldn't perhaps have seen, or you can liken yourself to in that whole scenario about what your future looks like, and actually say, well, wow, this could be a career option for me. We're looking at addressing schools, talking to people that are in college at different stages in their career, and all those really great things. It's a persona-based approach, so it's targeting specific parts of society, which we really need to concentrate on to get that transition to net zero achieved. We talked earlier about the numbers, the 312,000, the entry level. The next one which we're doing is around that sector entry. We're working closely with DWP, Department of Work and Pensions, for getting job centres and kind of understanding what their needs are. The people that I'm lining up to come along to these webinars can really tell a story about their challenges which they had, how easy or how difficult they found it to get into industry, and actually what skills they had and what was transferable and perhaps what wasn't transferable. So it's really about, you mentioned, well, what's the biggest skill which people need? Well, it depends where you are in your career stage, right? So if you are coming out of school, you probably know very little about the sector. But if you've been in industry, if you've been in other adjacent sectors, then you'll kind of have a little bit of an inkling. So yeah, Destination Energy is about telling people about it, and I'm really excited about it as it rolls out over the next 12 months.
That sounds great. Can you tell me why it's so vital right now?
Speed of transition.
Okay.
We've got a burning platform, 4 years really, to achieve this transition to net zero. We need to tap into perhaps underutilized sources of resources coming into industry. So therefore, we've got to look at all options. The future is absolutely bright. We need to be tapping into those future or those people that are in school at the moment. And but it's really about trying to drill down as far as we possibly can and tell real stories. So speed of transition, really important. Key resources that we need in industry, in known roles that we know that we have shortages in. We need to go and dig in different places that perhaps we've searched before. So, and also, I mean, I think we've never done anything on a scale like this before, which is I have 25 partner organizations which we're working with at the moment to get that message out there right the way across renewables, retrofitting people's homes, across the gas network, so looking at hydrogen, carbon capture and storage, all sorts of elements, as well as the transmission and distribution networks, which is perhaps our more traditional market. But this is about that energy side. So we've got to go big on this, and it's been challenging getting all those people sat around the table and agreeing to collaborate on something. But we've got a great opportunity here, and we really need to embrace it. And and people are getting on board with government support as well. So we've got DWP, Prison Service, and Department of Energy Security and Net Zero around the table, really collaborating with us on this one. And it's super exciting.
I love the fact you've kind of gone, do you know what? There is a massive problem here with the messaging. We're not going to have a seat at the table. We're going to create the table and get everybody on board. So, brilliant.
And we're a partner of that, right? So we've initiated it, but it's not. We're not trying to drive. This is not a business opportunity for us. This is something bigger than that. It's about the citizen. It's about getting people interested. So the whole campaign is about, top of the funnel. Let's get people interested in the sector, and then let's educate them. Let's tell them about what the opportunities are, and then either get them into real jobs, or we get them interested in real jobs, and therefore we'll keep them interested over that period of time. So when they do become available, or they're coming out of school, or they're looking to make career options, then they can go in and they can have a look at this as a future career. And it's about sparking something in people that are really interested, or maybe don't think they're interested at the moment. They come away and they go, I never really thought about that.
I'm actually really curious to find out more.
Yeah.
So if we've got people listening, whether it's potential partners or people that are actually, a bit more curious to do a career change or kind of get involved, a shameless plug now, how do they find out more?
Go to the Destination Energy website, and really, if you go, people can go and look at the webinars which we've done, and they can look at some of the case studies which are on there, some of the real stories from real people that have been involved in this. There are jobs to go and look at that are live right now, that there are opportunities for. But more importantly, yes, the conversion is really important. We are looking to fulfill those roles, but also look at perhaps less about some of the really big brands that are out there, some of the organization names which you'll be really aware of because they'll be in the news for all sorts of different reasons. But perhaps some of those smaller organizations as well, the supply chain organizations, which perhaps don't have the same brand visibility because, for some of the jobs which are in these bigger organizations, they're very oversubscribed, let's say, on some of those, clicks through to apply for those jobs. But some of those smaller organizations, less so. So one of the things which we have set up within this whole system is a talent pool. And people can go on to a website which will be linked to the Destination Energy, as well as other organisations that'll be linked to. But they have an opportunity right now to go and sign up to something called Energy and Utility Careers and Jobs Talent Pool. And within that, they'll be updated on various news articles that come out. They'll have invitations to future webinars. And also, the organisations which we work with, and we work with around 70 organisations that are members of Energy and Utility Skills at the moment, their advertising jobs as well as their recruitment people have access to your details then in the back end. And if you've loaded your CV in there, actually those people that are looking for people to fill those jobs can go in and have a look at who's on that system. So therefore, there's a great opportunity to join the dots here. People that are applying for jobs in the big organisations, maybe they don't get them. Let's send those back around and let's refer those back into the system. So then the smaller organisations with the perhaps less brand visibility, as I've said, have an opportunity to then recruit those people off the back of that. So,
but nonetheless still cool. Because some of those smaller organisations will probably be the NTech ones, that are, VC backed.
So much, yeah.
Technology.
Or they may be providing, they may be a manufacturer, right? They may be providing a small component. They may be manufacturing cables, or which you just would not see that organisation. If you're looking for a job, and you'd say, "Well, who is that organisation?" I have no idea what they do, and you'll move on. So this is about really just trying to almost redistribution of those, those people. We work so hard to attract them into industry. Yes. We don't want to lose them then to another industry. We want to tell them about all the other opportunities which are going on. So yeah, it's a good opportunity.
Fab.
Okay, so last question. Let's bring it back to businesses. If an energy company is struggling to find the right talent today, what's the first thing they should change about how they market themselves?
It's a big question.
Like a marketing question. I think it's about getting involved with. I don't think organisations, certainly from their own value proposition for what they're selling as a job, as a future for people. I think organisations still need to do that, but I think if they want to be part of that bigger drive, that bigger initiative, and step out of perhaps where they're operating in a small pond, and they want to get involved in something, then I'd say, give me a call, get in touch and become part of this this bigger initiative. And it's not just about energy. I know we're talking about energy, but the skills which people are looking for are around a big transition across UK PLC. Infrastructure investment at the moment is phenomenal. It's off the scale from what we've seen in the past. So therefore, there is a scarcity of those resources which are in high demand. So what we need to do is we need to collaborate and make sure that those resources are not being lost then to other areas, or potentially looking at other options maybe outside the UK. You get this brain drain effect where they perceive that there is no opportunities for them here in the UK. Well, that's not true. There are loads of opportunities. Yes, over the next 4 or 5 years, there's going to be a phasing of that. There's going to be, maybe not all those jobs are available right now. But we need to make sure we're keeping hold of those people, keeping them interested, and then getting them back into, hopefully, back into a role in industry. So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Fab. Well, thank you so much. This has been really, really interesting. Please go and find out more about Destination Energy, because I know I will be. So, thank you for all of that. And if anyone is thinking about a career in energy, there honestly is no better time than now. So, Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.